That's our conversation with Aisha Achimogu. But let's flip the page now and talk more about electoral law and Nigerian election, where fresh controversy is erupted over the Electoral Act after former INEC Resident Electoral Commissioner Mr. Mike Igini warned that certain provisions could compromise the credibility of the 2027 general elections. At the center of the debate is Section 63 on ballot verification, with concerns over whether ballots lacking official marks may still be counted under certain conditions. Well, fact checks suggest that provision is not new and was already contained in the 2022 law. So is this a genuine loophole, a misunderstanding of the statute, or a deeper warning about election management? Joining me now on the program is Chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Electoral Matters, Honorable Bayo Balogun. Honorable, thanks so much indeed for your time tonight. Yeah. Why does it feel, and there are notions and narrative out there, there are discrepancies within the electoral law? Opposition figures are already asking that there should be fundamental reforms and reshaping of the law to be able to meet a certain standard and threshold of fairness, equity, and reasonability of the conduct of the 2027 elections.
Well, Sean, thanks once again. You see, sometimes when you are dealing with the opposition, yes, they have reasons to say whatever they are saying. But when people who you're supposed to know better comes out for whatever reason and they decide to make a mess out of a system that that they actually even belong to sometimes ago, I find it not too good for our system, and for someone like Mr. Mike Igini, and when he was in the system, he was such a vocal person, and I don't see reason why at this stage he would decide to misinform Nigerians. The Section 63 that we were talking about was the case that happened in Kano, when the election was taken to court for because some ballot paper were not stamped. The official mark they're talking about here is the stamping and signing by the presiding officer. So, and I think this provision was in the Electoral Act to ensure that people do not bring ballot paper from from outside the provision of the unit. But with what we have now, I don't even think that provision should even be there at all again, because ballot paper are now personalized to the unit. So because the essence of you signing and stamping is to say that, okay, this ballot paper is for this place. So if another one is saying that I was not signed in the ballot box, they should know that it was imported from somewhere else. But if you now said, let me just read that for you. Subject to the to subsection 2, a ballot paper which does not bear official mark prescribed by the commission shall not be counted. And that was what happened in Kano. But it was because of this subsection 2 that the case was dismissed at the end of the day.
Honorable, because let's go straight to that section 3.
Okay.
And I'd like a full screen to be maintained right there. Why should any ballot paper without INEC's official security mark ever be considered for counting at all? Doesn't that create room for infiltration?
That is
forgery and post-voting manipulation.
What they mean by that official mark is the stamp and signing by the presiding officer at the back of the ballot paper. Because the ballot paper are not personalized, you cannot bring a new ballot paper that does not belong to that unit now. Before, it used to be the same thing. So what differentiates it then was the signing and the stamping. But now each unit has a serial number only for that unit.
So on that end, okay, look at this other subsection 2, and it says the law used the phrase where the returning officer is satisfied. What exactly does satisfied mean in legal and operational terms? Isn't that subjective language too risky for an election environment already backed with trust?
When a ballot paper is personalized to a unit in the booklet, you have maybe A1, 2, 3 as a unit code before you start having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I come and because I have not stamped, and I saw that, oh, this ballot paper are from the same booklets, it's part of the same booklet that you removed, probably in terms whether it was an error on your part, or probably where they were stamping some. You know what some of them do? They pre-stamp some of them down. Maybe you are stamping, maybe you could have mixed one or two in the process. So because if you see further that the total number of ballot paper is the same thing as the one removed from the booklet, so if these are the things the returning officer will check, and for no reason you know that yes, this is actually from this ballot booklet. So once you are convinced and everybody could see, are you now, because the presiding officer did not stamp it, now reject? And that's why Kano election was actually overturned.
Mm-hmm. So, Honorable, someone like Mr. Mike Igini, who spent about 10 years in INEC, he came out and he said that Nigeria's 2027 election.
And it's the same law that they used during his own election.
So there's no difference
it was
in 2022 and 2026.
No, it's
now because his claims, he's warning, and he says that there could be compromise. The election could be compromised because of some of the loopholes in the electoral law. As the chairman of the committee overseeing electoral matters, Honorable, do you agree that the law now contains some dangerous ambiguities, or is this political alarmism?
The issue is that you have to tell me which one. This is one that we are talking about. You said
Section 103, Section 83. These are sections that have been highlighted.
If this subsection 2 was not there, that means the governor of Kano State would have been removed. Because by the time they counted the number of the ballot paper that were not stamped, the difference was enough to remove him from office. But because of this subsection 2, he said, since the presiding officer, the returning officer saw them that they were part of the booklet from those units, so that's why he was able to escape at the Supreme Court. So these are not new provisions. The provisions that were used during the last election were not done in 2026. They were the 2022 provision. It was there in the 2022. That's why he was able to escape the judgment. So now let's look at 77 too, where they're talking about registration of having the NIN number. Why can we, for God's sake, be saying that not having a NIN number in your registration should be removed? We are talking about insecurity. The NIN number is the only social security number that we have to prove that you are a Nigerian. In fact, we wanted to put it in the voters registration, but because of the coverage, we saw that when we look at the coverage of the NIN, we felt that so many people might be disenfranchised. But to talk about people who want to contest election, you must prove to me that you are a Nigerian first before you can say you want to contest election. To be a party member means that at least you must be a Nigerian, because to be a party, a registered member of a party, you can contest an election. And if you don't feel responsible enough to go and register your NIN, and then you are now putting that on us that we shouldn't have put that in the provision. Can you contest in America? You even be an American without your social security number? It's only in Nigeria we want government to plan everything, but we are not even ready to do the slightest duty for the country. So these are some of these issues.
Honorable, are you saying that these provisions that are created or added to the law
have been there, not added?
No. There are new provisions that are added to 2026 electoral law. The one that is removing the mode of primaries. There were two. They added one in 2022 from 2015. They now removed another one, making it two. And there are other provisions that opposition figures have said these are limiting. These are made to help the ruling party and make the opposition party. Take for example the records and the timing and the timelines of election. Those who say these are limiting. For example, you ask them to go and front load and put a digital record of their, when you had already had this information and your party has started these processes.
Okay.
And they don't say,
I was here your program with the chairman of IPAC, Alhaji Yusuf Dantale, and he actually told you on that day that yes, we've been discussing on this issue. From the time that we started this amendment, we have carried all political parties along. Even on the floor of the House, we have all political parties, all major political parties represented. So there is nobody that will say this law is coming probably at the tail end. We are all aware of this. We all did this together. They were aware. And I think about November, October or so, I called him and I said, can you send this information to all the party chairmen that we are going to do this digital registration? The day we pass the House of Rep version, I sent the message to him and he acknowledged it. I said, look, do us a favor, send this information to all the national chairmen of the parties, since we are the umbrella body of the political parties. And he said he was going to do it. And they were all aware. They were in most of the parties. In fact, this provision was made by them, because most of them were complaining about people leaving their parties after primaries to go and join another party if they lose out in an election in a party primaries. It was a provision made by the political parties.
Honorable, give me a moment. There are some issues I'd like you to touch on, but it's going to be after this break. Join us again, everyone.